Hi everyone, it's Sam again, and I'm here with another video about one of my models that I wanted to sort of explain and also talk about this interactive graphic I made for the VCT playoff bracket and odds. You can find it at the URL at the top of the screen. I'll link it in the description. And talk a little bit about how it works. So the way that the model works is it uses that ELO rating that I talked about in a previous video. If you're curious, you can go check that out. It's a fairly standard ELO rating, and what it does is it allows us to know the likelihood that each individual team will win any particular game. From there, it simulates the entire playoff bracket, both sides, the double elimination side, and it tells, it records exactly what happened during those simulations. So who won each game, who lost each game, what the future games were, who won those, etc. And we do that 100,000 times. And so what we can do is, as you select the teams that you think will win, it will show you how many brackets of the 100,000 experienced those results. So, and brief spoilers here, earlier this morning, Team Secret beat Zeta Division. And so if we hover over these boxes, we can see that the model gave Team Secret a 60% chance to win that game. And when we click on Team Secret, we see that the number of brackets in which this result occurred is around 60,000, which is what we'd expect because, again, the probability of them winning was around 60%. And so Team Secret now advances to play DRX, and there are now 59,855 brackets remaining of our original simulation. T1 also won a relatively close series against Gen.G, for which they had an estimated 69-70% chance of winning that game. And so already 2 games into this series, we're down to 37,851 brackets of the original 100,000 that are still being observed in our model. And so, on one hand, this makes a lot of sense in terms of there are so many different possible brackets that even the most likely bracket set, like if we just go through and we pick the favorites, so DRX over Team Secret, PRX over T1, T1 beats Zeta, Team Secret beats Gen.G, and we go through and we fill out all these, take your pick here, take your pick here, take your pick here. Well, I guess technically it favors PRX. So this is the quote-unquote most likely bracket according to our model, and it has 587 of the 100,000 possible brackets that have this exact setup. And this is why, as I'm sure you've seen every single March Madness tournament, it's so unlikely that you pick a perfect bracket, because even if you do pick pretty high favorites in every game, the number of brackets that are going to match your bracket at the end of the day is going to be really, really small. So you might notice in the bottom right, this is relative probability out of 100. And it's a little janky because there's a certain order you can do things in. But what's important to note is at any given time during our bracket evaluation, there's some number of empty boxes. So in this case, I believe it starts off with 14 different empty boxes that we haven't yet filled. And so when there are 14 empty boxes, the maximum number of brackets that you can have out of 100,000 is 100,000, because this is just the starting configuration. But if we click on Team Secret, there's now 12 boxes because we just filled up 2 of them. And in this case, we have 59,855 brackets out of 100,000 with 12 more empty spots remaining. The relative probability here is 95%, so it's a pretty high chance relative to the optimal number of brackets with 12 remaining. But if we clear this bracket, we'll find that if we actually pick T1 over Gen.G, we have 100%, because it's more likely that T1 beats Gen.G than Team Secret beats Zeta. On the game-by-game basis, this relative probability is not particularly helpful. Like, it's relatively interesting to see, sure, but it actually doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Simply because when you fill out your bracket, you're going to get an estimation. Like, let's say I'm really high on Zeta Division. Obviously, we know that they didn't win the game today, but let's just say I think they're going to win. Now our relative probability starts to drop, and let's go crazy and say T1 actually beats PRX here. Our relative probability goes down again. Okay, let's say we expect DRX to pull out that, but then Zeta beats here, and PRX wins here, and then Zeta upsets PRX, and then T1 wins there. Anyways, we pick some set of games that we think could theoretically happen, and our relative probability now is way below 100%. Because relative to what we expect, the model expects, the bracket to turn out like, we've picked something that has a relatively low probability. The proportion of brackets that are still remaining out of the maximum possible brackets still remaining is much lower than one might expect. And so having talked about all of that, hopefully in relatively interesting detail, go try it out for yourself, play around with it. I'll be updating it as games happen, so I will probably be creating another version of I'll potentially be creating another version of the bracket. I'm not exactly sure if it's valuable with teams as they progress through the tournament. But I want to briefly detour to talk about the Tokyo Chances graphic that I posted to my Twitter as well as to Reddit. And this is what the graphic looked like. And I want to just briefly go through how these numbers are created. It's very similar to what we just talked about. Same exact methodology. We simulate the entire bracket 100,000 times. And then of that bracket, whoever makes the loser's final as well as whoever loses the loser's final as well as is in the finals are granted a spot to Masters Tokyo under the current system. And so in 86% of brackets, PRX and DRX make it to Tokyo, and then you can see the probabilities from there. This still has to be updated with the initial matches that just occurred. Obviously, Team Secret and T1 are going to have a big jump, and Zeta Division and Gen.G have a pretty steep hill to climb if they want to end up making it to Masters Tokyo. That said, the probabilities will be far above zero, at least for now, so stay tuned for a potential future graphic on that. Yeah, if you have any other questions about how the model works, any other graphics you want to see, sort of illustrating similar ideas, similar things about the model, please just reach out in the comments. I'm excited whenever someone has something to say about what I've made and want more ideas for what people want to see in the future. So thank you so much for watching. Obviously, it'd be great if you could subscribe. Any subscribers right now pretty clearly make up a massive percentage increase in my subscriber count. So if you want to have an outsized impact on my potentially irrational happiness, it'd be great if you could do that. So thanks. Have a great day. Thank you for watching.